I've got this rather ugly piece of concrete that I've got in my garden. So what I've done is I've just collected some rocks from the garden to make it look a little bit more natural than a big chunk of concrete that's there. And I'm going to try and make a faux fish pond. So we've got all the rocks in place. I'm quite happy with where they are. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some grey cement and then white cement, and I'm going to try and place it into the gaps here. All the grey cement is now in place where I want it to be, and now I'm going to add the white cement. When I work with the white cement, I like to have it so it's like really thick so that I can actually mould it how I want to use it. And then we just mould it and place it into all our little spaces that we want. The first little piece that we're going to be putting in is this one over here. Just a big chunk of it. And then just squishing it down to fit in. And you just carry on and do your path of how you want to go. All the white cement is now in place, and that's pretty much the path that I want the water to go. As you can see, just over here and there is where the water will fall into the bottom. And because I don't know how to make clear water falling, we're going to pretend they're little waterfalls. And the reason why I've put the rocks in the middle here is because when water flows down and it hits the rocks, it sort of like makes it more like rapids. So we'll have a bit of white going around here and then falling down. So that's what the little water feature is going to look like. So now we'll wait for that to dry. While I'm waiting for the cement to dry, I'm just going to take some of this kitchen and bathroom silicone in the clear, and I'm going to put some on the rocks here so I can put some pretend moss on it. You can always add later once we finish painting it, but I thought while we're doing this waiting, we just get a bit of moss going. Now you can buy green sponge at the craft shops, but because I work with a lot of polystyrene, I just collect all my little pieces of polystyrene like this, and we're just going to sprinkle a bit of that on and then paint it later. And then just pat it in. So you can put that anywhere you want. I'll be putting it on a few extra places, but I'll show you the final result. To paint the water feature, I've just got a few different colours. I've got some light green, hooker green, it's like turquoise, light greyish blue, brilliant light blue, some beige, and grey white, and water, and you're just going to need a few little paint brushes. And I've also got a very small amount of cobalt blue and ultramarine. So now all we're going to do is just dab a few of the colours on in random places. then we're going to just take some water and we're going to blend the colours all together. If you're not happy with the colours, you just add more. We're going to wait for that to dry. In some of the places where you don't want it to be too brightly white, just paint it while it's wet. So we need a little bit of splashing carrying on around some of the rocks, so we're just going to add, because we don't want it to be too brightly white. So a little bit of a fade is good. As you can see, I've added the grey-white around the rocks so that it looks like the water's splashing against, and in some of the places where the rocks actually look like they're dipping down, I've painted them a little bit more white so that they look like a waterfall. And once that's all dry, we're going to go back with titanium white and touch it up a little bit more to make it a bit more brilliant. In the meantime, we're going to paint the moss that we made earlier. So to start the moss, I've taken some raw umber and some grey black, and I've just mixing it together to give us our first coat. It's preferable if you use a hard brush so you can just dab it on. So the next layer I've taken hooker green and some of the brown, grey, black and mixed it together to give it a little bit of a darker shade, and then we're going to go and dab that on into places as well. So not too much of that either, just, you know, dabbing a little bit here and there to start creating that moss look, and then just continue doing that on all of them, and we'll come back and do the next layer. Now we're going in with the next layer, which we're going to just use neat hooker green and dab that on as well. As I said, just in sparing little places, because we're just trying to give it layers, so you don't want everything to be covered, just in different places. And then just do that, and we'll come back for the fourth layer. So for the fourth layer, I've taken emerald green and the hooker that we were using earlier and blended those two colours together. So what we're going to do now for the fourth and fifth layer, we're going to use that colour, and then we're going to finish it with the emerald green. So there, all the moss is painted in. All we get to do now is finish off the water. So as you can see, it looks quite realistic. And then we'll be putting in the waterfalls. So I've got some raw umber, which I'm just going to be fixing up the rocks where we messed. Trying to get the rocks where you went over, like that. You don't want straight lines because the water's bashing against it. Maybe you'd like to take a little bit here and just fix up the rocks where you think that they might need fixing. So now once again we're going to just add a few more details. So I've got raw umber and some white, and I've mixed it to give us this colour here, which we're going to just add to some of the little rocks that are under the water. So the darker colour, you're just making a little circle underneath the little rocks, so that it looks like the shadows of the rocks underneath. You can add as many as you want or as few as you want. It just depends on what detail you want. So we're just going to add that light colour, and after that we're taking a beige colour and just doing the top a little bit like that. So that our rocks look like they're underwater. And when the paint is a little bit more dry, then we'll come in with our titanium white and put the waterfalls in. I've got titanium white now. We're going to paint the little waterfalls and just highlight the water a wee bit. So just taking your white paint and just dabbing it on. And where the waterfall lands, it's got a bit of a splash to it, so just add a wee bit extra at the bottom of the falls. And just continue until you've painted all the falls. So that's what the little rocks look like once we've painted them in, so they look like they're under the water. So I've got this rather ugly little gap there that didn't fill in properly, so what I've done is I've made some little hedge bushing, and I'm just going to place it in there to make it look a little bit better. If you want to know how to learn to do this, I'll leave a link in the description below. As you can see, for me, I don't have to paint in the shadows because this is an outdoor, so it creates its own natural shadows. But if you were painting it indoors and you wanted shadowing, you do the shadowing that comes all the way where the natural shadows, like underneath the rocks, how it's actually formed when the sunlight hits it to create your shadows. But I'm not going to put them in because I've got natural ones. Everything is dry now. Now I'm going to put clear coat on. When you're painting with the clear coat, try and not paint the polystyrene because the clear coat actually eats the polystyrene. Now, I like to do 3 coats of the clear coat, so between each coat you wait for it to dry. I've got some newspaper, now I'm just measuring what the template is going to be like for the fish pond. So just going around the rocks, pushing it under and so on to get a template. So I have the template cut out, and now I'm going to just transfer that onto a piece of cement board and then paint the fish pond. To paint the fish pond, what I've done is I've painted the whole cement board in black, and then I've just painted ovals and circles and strange shapes in grey. Now what I'm trying to create is the illusion that this is going to be deep water over here, where the fish will be able to swim through to the other side, and I want one section to be shallow. So what I've done is I've lightened the rocks to make it look like that, so it looks like it's shallow water. So all you have to do is just darken the rocks as they go deeper and then lighten them in the shallow waters. So to paint the pebbles, I've got a chiseled brush, and what I'm doing is I'm mixing a darker shade to the one that we've got here and a lighter shade, so that we can put the dark at the bottom here and lighter at the top so that the pebble actually looks like it's a 3D pebble. So I've got a slightly darker colour like that. So you're just going to take your chisel brush, using the tip of it, just go around it. And blend it inwards so that it's not quite a solid line. If you think it's a little bit dark, then you can lighten it a little bit. So that one might be a wee bit dark, but we'll just go with the next one, just show you. Once again, just blend it in. And where you've gone over, like I've messed up here, I'm taking a very tiny little brush like this. Get out of focus there. To fix up. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your black and just paint where you've messed up, just to get it back into the right shape. So now all you have to do is just do the rest of them. So now that we've painted all the pebbles in, what we're going to do is we're going to paint small pebbles in the gaps all over, so that it looks like it comes to life. As you can see, there's a difference between that one there that I've painted already in comparison to that which looks really flat. I've measured where the waterfall is going to be hitting into the water. So what I'm doing is I'm taking some bathroom and kitchen silicone, putting it onto some toothpicks like that, and then where I've marked it, just going to wipe the marking and place the silicone just on there and just mess it up a bit so that it looks like we've got splashes in the water. So we've got one waterfall there, another one, and another one just over there, over there. Now we just wait for them to dry and then we'll come back and paint them. So that's a real close-up to show you what we're looking for, just little tiny splashes. To do our little splash ponds, I'm taking a very small paintbrush like that, and we're going to just dab on some white paint just so that it looks like it's splashing. So just a little bit, putting some on top of the little splashes, and then just around the sides. And that's all you need to do. So close up, that's what it looks like. Now I'm just going to paint the other two. So now to paint the fish, I'm using some grey white with ultramarine and some cobalt blue. I'm going to mix it together to give me just a very light shade of blue white, so that I can paint the fish. So it's a little bit dark, so that's about the colour that I'm looking for just to paint the fish. So pretty much that's what it looks like when I've painted it white. As you can see, they just look like giant white bananas. Later on we'll do the fins. So when you're painting koi, they come in all different colours, so you just get to choose what colours you want. I'm going for orange, red, it's a scarlet colour red, and yellow and black, and of course the white. And you can paint whatever shapes that you want on it, because there's no definite pattern with koi. They just have random patterns all over the place. So play around with them and see how you go. sorry, on checking the videos, this one didn't take. So what I've got is I've got a really tiny little brush like this, which I use to do the highlights over here, the eye part as well, and the little things, and I've put some little highlights, reflections on top of that. Sorry, I didn't get them on camera because the camera just conked out on me. So now if this was an indoor fish pond, you would be painting your reflections in, but because mine is an outdoor one, I don't need to paint it in because I'm using an extremely high sheen gloss that picks up the surrounding reflections. I've now started working on the second one. So with this one I'm going to be having a roya planted on the side there. I've just got to make a few more little plants to fill in and place the bricks into place. So I've got the rocks in place now, and I've put the extra plants in, and just to make it look a little bit more authentic, I've got these floating water lilies that I'm going to be putting on top. On the back of the water lily, it's got this little thing. Normally what you would do is you would place the bolts on them so that they keep them in the water, but I'm going to be just cutting them off and then siliconing them onto the actual picture. So I've trimmed them now and siliconed them in, and that's the final picture of the second one. A little waterfall for our little feature. I've got a piece of cling wrap that I've just taped to the table. I'm going to take a small amount of dish liquid and spread it over the wall. Try not to take too much because otherwise your silicone is definitely not going to be able to be worked with. So I always like to do a bit more than what I need. As you can see, it's very thin, just so the silicone doesn't stick to the plastic. Now you take the silicone and just work a stripe down. If you can get two together, that was even better. Right, now you're going to take toothpicks and then you take about 4 together, make like a little broom, and you're going to scrape the silicone so that it starts looking like a waterfall. And now I've got a little packet of glitter. It's a see-through, it's a white glitter, and it's in the shade of 107. That should do. To the background, you might be able to see it a little bit better. What we're going to do now is, because we need the waterfall to have an arch as it comes over, so I've got a little piece of cardboard, just like that, and a little round stick. You can use a pencil or chopstick, you can use anything that you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the silicone and put the top part over the stick so that I've got a rounded section coming over like that, and the cardboard I'm going to put underneath it so that it raises to the same height. The waterfall, you've got it falling like that. So I'm just going to try and set that aside and dry that in that position. The silicone pieces are all dry. Yeah, hopefully they'll come off quite easily. Just like that. That's what your little waterfall is going to look like. Now you can trim it down to whatever size you want. Now you just need to have that little bit of an arch so that it goes all nicely over, because as you can see, when you bend silicone, it tends to bounce back and you can't glue silicone unless you use other silicone, so if you bend it, it bounces back. So now everything is dry and there's the water feature coming down, and I've put in the fake koi pond and placed a few artificial plants around the sides. And the next thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting the waterfalls in. So there'll be one there, and one will go over there, and then there will be another one on that corner there. So I'm going to silicone those into place. Thank you so much for watching.